right, welcome back to the Tats and Gats podcast. This is episode. What episode is this?
I have no idea.
7. Lucky number 7. Our guest today is a very close friend of mine. His name is John. He does all kinds of cool medical stuff that we'll get into. But before we jump into the episode, we gotta get into our sponsors. Can't talk today. Who's our sponsors of the show?
One of them is RKB Tactical.
The other is Inked In Tools. They're our companies, and they tactical stuff and then tattoo stuff. If you're a tattoo artist, check it out.
And they pay for all this.
Yes, we pay for ourselves.
Looking for some sponsors.
Yes. How you doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Long day.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Like I said, this is our guest, John. But we do like to start every episode out with a pocket dump of your EDC.
Sure.
Tell us what you carry, and then we'll get into who you are and what you do and all that fun
Fantastic. Gonna be dumping on the table?
stuff. Yes.
Sure.
Just, it is glass, so like, you know.
Still waiting to see someone to top heck.
Yeah. Yeah, we had you remember Heck Tattoo, right? From the shop? Yeah.
Ooh.
So tell us what you got as you're pulling it out. Or are you going to go one by one after you dump it all? Okay.
There's also
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Boot, maybe? A lot of little things coming out. I like it.
Listen, my EDC is a little bit different than most people's, I guess. I currently don't carry because it's time and money, and I don't have very little of all that. But everything is more purpose built. My flashlight, illumination. I have a ferro rod that sits on my key ring.
What is that?
Ferrocerium rod. It hit it with a spark, create fire.
Okay, gotcha.
Instead of carrying a lighter all the time. Just a little multi-tool. It's better to have something to pry with that's purpose-built than using your knife. A lot of people use their knife to pry, then they break their knife and they're big sad because $200 goes out the window. A little strap cutter. On the ambulance, back in the day, it worked out because it has a O2 wrench. Just a little handy thing for me. Handcuff keys, also nice. Most people just ignore that stuff in your pile of keys. Outside of that, everything else is just keys. Chapstick, because it's wintertime and dry, but inside my chapstick I keep a little bit of cotton gauze, because chapstick and cotton gauze makes a really good fire starter.
Yeah.
So most of my EDC is more of wilderness survival, kind of if I'm stuck somewhere, don't have everything. Just a simple little Gerber, nothing fancy, because a pocket knife is used to open packages and nonsense. I'm not carrying a $300 knife that I don't want to use for anything, because if I break that, I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
It's good carry. Good case for a cell phone, because cell phones are full of tools, but inside the case you can hide little things like little bobby pins and stuff.
So many little things popping out of places.
Oh yeah, I always have gloves because they're always in my pockets anyway, but they're handy because I use them for oil changes and picking up stuff and besides medicine. But if I was in ever the situation I needed to use my hands for stuff, blood's gross and I don't want to touch it. So that's number one tool. Plethora of bobby pins comes from back in the day, just something to kind of keep on me. This is a little Bodega pick set. It has a little rake and pick, titanium, so it does non-ferrous. Just puck it in a little seam of my pants, and I have a little lockpick set wherever I want. Then I have a bigger lockpick set from Covert Industries.
Yeah, I recognize
a
that.
pile of tools. It's not that it's gimmicky. There's a lot of really cool tools on here. Some you don't need, but you can take them out and put them on whatever ones you want. But got this recently, so this has just been me kind of exploring some more picks. I've been into lock picking for a long time.
I've recently picked up that hobby as well. I think you got into it a little too. Yeah, it's fun stuff.
I've been into it for a long time.
Oh, cool.
My wallet's also very EDC because I have a little Fresnel lens. Can start fires, stuff
sick.
like that. It's the size of a credit card and sits in my wallet. I have, let's see what else.
If you just hold your credit card up to the camera too.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, credit card numbers. You take my. You can take all you want. You're gonna be sad. You get the bills though if you take my ID. Another lockpick set sits in my wallet. This is one I use more often than not. Sits in the back. Then I got a little inside the wallet key. Got a scalpel Just a little scalpel blade, so I have a little knife on me as needed.
That's rad.
Had at one point in here. Oh yeah. Teeny tiny little skim light.
Oh, cool.
In case I need something. Just have it. Throw all my cool stuff out, I guess.
Sweet.
Yeah, so most of my stuff comes from and then big cash. You always need a little bit of cash. Most of my stuff comes from, as much as I'd like to carry, is more like wilderness survival. If I need something and I need to have a little bit of something on me, kind of always as a backup, what happens if I'm in a gunfight, there's a lot of things that have failed. As much as I want to carry and will carry eventually, it's one of those things. But I drive 5 hours to work through the desert, if I'm stuck out there and for some reason don't have my truck or whatever, I have options.
That makes sense. I was kind of thinking like on a day-to-day, how much you interact in the wilderness. And then I remembered what you do for work. You're driving out into the desert multiple times throughout the week and month. So that makes sense. You break down out there. Yeah.
And even walking around and stuff, I go for a hike with the family and stuff. Most of this stuff I can, you have that theoretical situation of like, cool, you're carrying your Glock and stuff, but if you were lost in the woods or something, could you survive for 3 days? Could you get out?
I had to shoot stuff with my Glock.
Yeah, you could miss a squirrel 17 times. I also carry a Grail, which are nice. It filters, but in the bottom of it, I also have a little couple water purification tablets because this will filter just about everything. But I like to not die from cool protozoa and fun things. So
yeah, I like that everything is like tucked away and little hidden.
Everything has its place.
Yeah,
We've had that though. Like we've been out on like a weekend hike, and one of the guys like didn't bring enough water, and he's just over there just drinking out of the river, and he was paying for it the next day. He's like, dude, I'm dying. I was like, we told you not to, bro.
yeah,
didn't he like not let it filter long enough or something?
No, he didn't do anything. He just filled his canteen. He didn't want to wait for the other dudes that were boiling water.
it's like, was it Jeremiah Bridges? Just
He was just
the water
he
is
was
good.
like, oh, I'm okay. And then once we were like headed back, he's like, I'm not okay.
Immediately not.
Yeah.
Immediately. And there's no areas we're going to go that's not going to be contaminated by humans to some degree. On top of that, on top of just animal crud and poo and stuff.
So bad.
Awesome, man. Why don't you give us a little bit of a brief background, what you do currently and how you got there and what you have done in the past?
Sure.
A little bit about you.
Yeah. Currently, I'm a flight paramedic. I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. I'm a base lead at my base. Moving a little more local soon, which is cool.
Oh, rad.
Getting out of the 5-hour drives to still the desert, but still a 2-hour drive is a little bit nicer.
It's doable.
Yeah. From the moment I got into medicine, I knew I kind of wanted to fly because they get to do the coolest stuff, chest tubes and crazy invasive monitoring, all the fun stuff. Before that, I was a 911 paramedic on the ambulance for about 5 years. When I was there, I taught at the paramedic school. I was a preceptor for 2 colleges. I did all of the pre-hospital trauma classes, PHTLS. I taught, did ACLS, advanced cardiac life support, taught pediatric life support, did all of the county recertification for the advanced skills for like paramedics. Me and another guy for our division, got really heavily involved in teaching. I really love teaching. It's skills and stuff, and it's easy stuff for me, but it's stuff that I find that I enjoy a lot.
You're a good teacher.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You came out and did a little medical class for some of us out in the desert on a snowy day.
Snowy day.
On us during the great blizzard of last year.
Yeah, but you really did a great job of just clearly explaining what needed to be explained, and a good teacher. Just all the things that
I enjoy
come
it.
along with that. So
It's something I'd like to do eventually as more of a regular thing. I've had to pull back on a lot of, I changed companies and started flying, but I've pulled back on teaching in other places and stuff. I'm kind of reorganizing where I'm going to look at and kind of get into. I've been in pre-hospital for almost 9 years now. I was looking at it and I really enjoy it. Came on the heels where I got a taste of it was I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years and, did some fun things. And then, the thing that I always enjoyed besides obviously the shooting and the field craft and stuff is something that I always leaned into was the medical stuff. We did combat lifesavers, and that's a 40-hour class. And most guys do it once or twice. I think I did it every year I was in. And, you know, the corpsmen in the Marine Corps, our medics are called corpsmen. They're from the Navy. I always became real good friends with them and got like just extracurricular knowledge and learning. Because if you got one corpsman to 12 guys and that guy goes down and he has the most information, we're all trained to a little bit of a level, but I felt it was important for us to be, at least myself, to be more trained in case, you know, because everyone wants to do the cool guy shooting stuff, but no one wants to take the time to learn the, like, how to clean water. You know, when you're out in the wilderness, you can go on a 5-day thing, and if you're, you know, crapping your brains out on day 2 because you drank stream water because you didn't bring enough or you didn't bring anything to filter it, that you just limited your whole, you know, gang of dudes, you know.
Take care of Doc, though. I know, like, all the dudes, like, they will always take care of Doc.
Yeah.
Like, always. Like, hey, don't fuck with him. Hey,
Yeah.
he's with us. Don't fuck with him.
Oh, for sure.
It's so
Doc's your
nice.
dude, you know. He's the guy that's taking care of you, you know, even from little things like sick call stuff to like putting the tourniquet on you out in the field, you know. Like, it's, you know, I've had a good career so far in that pretty much every skill on an ambulance. I haven't seen everything in flight. I haven't been doing it long enough. I've done it, put tourniquets on, I've needle decompressed. I've done a bunch of cool stuff. And, you know, like the medical side of the house, we train to that with repetition and stuff. So when it happens, we can perform, you know. It's hard to expect, you know, dudes that just dedicate their time being trigger pullers to spend that much time on the medical side of things, because while they need to, and the longer they do it, the more they'll pick up and train and stuff like that. But it's also one of those things, like, you have a job to do, and then you have a guy that does his job, and everyone does their job. You know, you cross train as much as you can. But, you know, for me, seeing a amputated leg at a car accident isn't something that I'm going to freak out over. You're just going to put the tourniquet on and do everything else I need to do, stop the bleeding, and, you know, it's
Glue the leg back on.
that's it. Yeah, just glue a little bit of little Gorilla Glue. You know, hold it for a couple. You got to clamp that though. Yeah.
It is like a big gap, though, right now in this, like, the Southern California communities, the lack of, like, medical, like, good medical. Like, it's usually like a stop the bleed, which are, like, super cool.
Oh, it's a great class.
But there's so many people seeking more advanced stuff, like T-Triple-C. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we are instructors. Maybe we can do a little something like that. And
Offer
bring
a
him out and
TACMED
offer that.
class.
Yeah, because that is, like, huge gap. Like, everyone's like, stop the bleed, but, like, more advanced shooters, you know, they want to shoot, you know,
Yeah.
make holes, plug holes in the same day, same weekend. So
That's it. I mean, that's something that the community has needed for a long time. I watched, you know, all the tactical guys. Like, there's legitimate tactical guys that have done 20-year careers that have come out and done really cool stuff. And then there's dudes that have gotten into it and come out. But then there's also that, like, the market became saturated. I've watched these classes become, people have done cool things and stuff, and then they just become, you know, some guy who was in, like, S1 his whole career, you know, 4 years riding a desk, comes out and does tactical classes. He's like, oh, I was in the Army for, you know, or whatever, you know, where there's some validity to, like, your background. But there's people who have no military background that are fantastic tactical instructors, you know, on the flip side of it. But the market's become oversaturated, and everyone wants to clear rooms. CQB is, like, the coolest thing you can do. You're getting it with a stack of 4 dudes.
It is really cool, though.
It is. Listen, I'm not saying it's not. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool CQB training, and it is, yeah, that's the best day you're going to have. But everything that leads up to it, right? That's like the tip of the pyramid. The foundation is people ignore, right? It's that's the biggest thing in the tactical community and the gun community, is like people ignore that foundational skill, right? Being able to fix a malfunction, being able to clear your weapon and transition as needed, being able just to walk and shoot without walking on every step, and pulling the trigger, doing outside of every step, and being comfortable and competent in what you do, in that, because everyone wants to get to the tip, but their foundation sucks. So they're just building straight up, and it's not sustainable, because, you know, it's like that Mike Tyson thing. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? You know, something weird goes off that you didn't rehearse. Like, you can't think on your feet, you know?
I see the same thing in the tattoo world. People want to jump straight to, like, I'm doing the portraits, or I'm a appointment only, or I'm this or that. Like, there's so many foundations you learn, apprenticing, and then working in a street shop, taking walk-ins. Like, those foundations, you know, are gonna make you that way better artist down the line.
Yeah.
But again, people want to ignore them because what they see on Instagram is the cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they see the end result. They don't see the 10 years
Yeah.
of practice and repetition. And, you know, as an apprentice, you're sweeping and mopping the floors, you know, before and after work. Yeah, there's a little bit of hazing because it's fun to like pick on the new guy, but they're also you're learning how to like shut up, do the work, get it done the right way and efficiently. But it also takes into precedent when you come to your own shop. You sweep and mop every day. You're keeping it clean and sterile because A, infections are gross, and B, it's presentable. You want to go into a shop that looks clean and gives the appearance of cleanliness because it makes you feel comfortable as a customer.
Absolutely.
And then the health and safety goes into it as well.
I want to touch a little bit more on what you do for work. You said you're an air medic. For people that may not know what that is, what does that mean? What
Sure.
are you doing?
So when you dial 911, you get a paramedic ambulance, and then the fire engine, they're going to have a crew of all the firefighters would be like EMT level, which is below paramedic. It's a basic life support. Paramedic's advanced life support. So advanced life support means I can put someone on a 12-lead cardiac monitor, interpret your cardiac rhythm, decide whether or not you're having a heart attack. I can give a ton of medications, including narcotics. I can do intubations. I can do a bunch of cool stuff, right? So that's advanced. Basic is nothing invasive. They can't do medicine. They can do tourniquets. They can do dressings. They can assess people, which is a good
They're
skill.
not putting anything in you.
But they're not like they're not doing anything more than like basic interventions. They're very qualified. That's where you start. You start as an EMT, then you become after a couple of years, go to paramedic school, then you become a paramedic. After an amount of years as a paramedic, depending on how often people are hiring, as well as your own investment in training, you start applying to want to fly, because flight paramedicine is a critical care role. So it is another step above paramedic. So what I could do on the ground compared to what I can do in the air is almost as comparable as what I used to do as a paramedic to an EMT, like the next level up. So I don't do rescues. That would be like the sheriff, the guy's going on the hoist, going into a canyon to pick up a hiker. Those are typically run by a sheriff department. And they have medical training. Some departments, they are actual paramedics that'll come down, like a cross-trained paramedic officer, and they'll do the rescues. And some agencies, maybe fire will do, like San Diego, I think fire has the hoist capabilities. But I do the transport side. So what will happen is they'll pick you out of the canyon and set you on the side. Then my helicopter will land, and then we take you to the hospital. So, or you're on your way to Las Vegas, you get into a big car accident, like past Barstow. It'll take you an hour or two before an ambulance or fire engine gets there. We'll be dispatched for that. So we'll fly out, land, pick you up, and take you to the trauma center, because our flight time is going to, kill any ambulance time, even through an open desert. So
You guys ever get there before like the firefighters?
sometimes,
Yeah.
because the way we operate is you can't call 911 in our area and get a helicopter immediately. We're dispatched after someone's been there. So fire's been there, PD, someone's been there, so we can overfly them and beat them depending how far out it is. But the other side of the coin is we're also a flying ICU. So we also pick up patients who need to go to an ICU, or from an ICU in a smaller hospital going to like a bigger ICU somewhere. So right now I work out in Arizona. Most things are going to fly out to, I work in pretty rural Arizona. So we're going to fly to Phoenix, Vegas, or Palm Springs for anything significant. So someone who's on an Impella, which is a little tiny propeller or impeller that sits in your body and moves blood through because your heart's not doing so good in the most basic form, or a balloon pump, which is a little balloon that sits in your arteries that inflates, deflates to help support your heart, or any number of crazy drips and medications, or a ventilator. Like we pick those patients up and then fly them with myself and a flight nurse partner to wherever we need to go. So the critically sick, or someone that's far enough away from help that a flight is going to be more beneficial because the air time is going to beat the ground time.
Do you see a lot of crazy car accidents?
Yeah, mostly on the ground so far is where I see, because on the ground, I'm the first one there, as a paramedic on an ambulance. I'm going to be there either before, or immediately after the fire department. That's where I'm going to see the most critical stuff, because I'm walking up to it before anyone's touched it. With flight, someone's had their hands on the patient a little bit before we've got there. Typically,
when you do roll up to something like that and it's pretty gnarly, what's your opening line to the person in need?
If they're awake,
Yeah.
Hi, my name's John. I'm going to take care of you. And it's just, if they're with it, cool. Like, hey, don't worry, we're going to take you to the hospital, get you patched up. and then whatever else we need to do. And then I'm talking to them the whole time. And even if they're unconscious, it's something that I used to teach as a paramedic instructor is talk to your patients. Just because they are unable to respond doesn't mean they are not still with it. There's people who are just out because of their situation, blood loss, injury, or whatever, that they still can remember that later. There's instances of people performing such good CPR that the patient's brain was on. They were unable to respond or anything, and they were pumping enough blood to the brain that they have pockets of memories from the CPR, from the resuscitation event, where they'd be like, I heard, a phone go off and it was like Sweet Home Alabama or something, and like someone's phone was in the room, went off. There's no way you know that unless your brain was on a little bit, and we do such good quality CPR nowadays. And that's what we're trying to save is the brain with CPR. Awesome. But yeah, I talk to patients even if they're unconscious. Hey, we're going to move you over to the stretcher. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And I'm talking to them as well as my team, but I'm also still talking to the patient because they may or may not still be listening. And if I can provide a calm, atmosphere for them, because like as a rescuer, if I show up to a situation and I'm all like, okay, like, does that inspire confidence? Like if you were having the worst day of your life because you don't call 911. Well, some people call 911 for fun. But, as a paramedic, if I showed up and I was like, oh no, you roll into something and you see the guy you called in an emergency, like, like you're going to be like, what do you mean? What does that mean? You're going to start, hey, my name's John. I'm here to help. What can I, we're going to get you out to the hospital and get you taken care of, and just nice and calm and easy. And anyone that's worked with me, that's my reports on the radio. That's me in the back with the patient. The more chaotic it is, the more calm I try to make everything. Hey, can you hand me that real quick? Do me a favor. Start the IO and get that medicine going. I'm going to put them on the thing. We're going to get the blood pressure going. Hey, get there warm and covered, and it's easier to pass information.
You do have a calming voice. I'm pretty calm right now. For
sure, man.
It's like
I would want you like above me, hey, you're going to be all right. Do you ever crack jokes like,
all the time?
Why'd you do that?
Immediately. The thing about like, anyone in medicine in general, but the emergency medicine side of the room, like paramedics and EMTs in the field, emergency room nurses and docs and stuff, a lot of them are my friends. We have, my grandmother called it gallows humor, that dark humor. Like we will we're not making fun of the patient stuff, but we'll make fun of everything, and the best thing about being a paramedic in the ambulance, in the air, they're either like fully out and sedated and they're on a ventilator, or they're not, but they're also in headphones. You can't really talk to them as much. But on the ambulance, you have like 10 good jokes, and then you drop them off. Then you get another patient. You got those same 10 jokes. I don't got to write new material. I got the same stuff. It's like that tight 5, man. I'm good for that 30 minute. I got easy enough, like if you take, for one of my favorite ones, and everyone has their own like pile of jokes, is take a patient's temperature in the hospital. If you notice the top of the oral thermometer, it's blue. The blue ones are for the mouth. The red ones are for rectal. They are kept separate and away. But one of the better the jokes is as you're taking the temperature, the difference between an oral and a rectal thermometer, it's the taste. And then they chuckle a little bit. I'm like, I'm just kidding. The rectal ones are blue. As you're holding the base of the thing facing them, they look at it and they get a little panicked, and then you just walk away and it's fun.
That's great.
But yeah, no, all jokes all the time. I don't take anything seriously, but it also adds a calming effect on my crew if they're spun up or, worried or panicked and stuff. If I'm, having a good time back there, like I'm not at the expense of anyone, but keep it relaxed, keep it easy. My goal is always to, like, the worst traumas and injuries and stuff, if I can make you laugh while we're getting in the hospital, like, I've won a battle, dude. Like, if you're bleeding out, you're having a bad day, if I can make you chuckle a little bit, or like at least roll the eyes, like where you kind of tell a bad joke to your wife, like if I can get that, like, I win, because I've taken your mind out of it a little bit, and I do it nonstop.
Okay, I had a few things wanted to ask you, touch on. One, we ask people usually if they've ever, a time that they've ever felt over their head regarding to like tattooing or shooting, but I thought it'd be interesting as a medical professional, was there a time you can recall where you felt you were over your head on a call or on a thing like that? Like,
oh, sure.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I remember being within 6 months of getting my paramedic license, getting on the ambulance, like still that, like, because there's a lot of fields that like you do on the job training and you have like a support crew, right? Paramedics you get in California, it's a blue card, but you get your paramedic license, you know, you get picked up by a company, you do like a week or two of orientation stuff, which is like admin and whatnot. And then you do like 10 shifts with a field training officer, an FTO. And then it's just you and an EMT and an ambulance out in the world, you know? So, which is why paramedic school is generally a little more intense than other schooling. Cause like you're getting beat up with this stuff because you have to know it. There's no like, oh, let me go ask the doctor. Let me go ask like this senior paramedic next to me how to do this because I'm spun. Like we memorize our protocols, we memorize our skills, we practice and practice and practice so that we get out there like day one. I mean, it's just you in the world, you know, like other medical, you know, nurses and stuff. You get hired, there is a period of on the job training, but you also have a floor of staff that if you're like, this is overwhelming,
Right.
there's people there that can assist you. You know, it's a little kinder and gentler. It's, you know, nursing goes through a lot of good training and stuff too, but I like to equate it like paramedics it's like a trade school. When you graduate from 2 years of a welding program, you have certifications in whatever specialties you want to do, and then you can weld. You may not be the best, but you can weld, you know, as opposed to graduating like with like a bachelor's degree in business. You have theories that you have a minimum level of education that someone goes, oh, you have a bachelor's degree. You should know how to write a paper and understand basic math and stuff like that. You have theoretical
I have
knowledge.
a bachelor's degree, and I don't know how to do any of that stuff.
There's always exceptions, all right? But you get out, and the idea is like if I had a bachelor's in business and got out, I wouldn't be like a manager right out the gate. I would be hired onto a company, thrown into the bottom of it, and then I would learn the companies. If, you know, oh, we make filters. Okay, well, I'm learning everything about the job I'm working for now, and then I become a master of that through on-the-job training. That's like nursing. Nursing's like a bachelor's degree where you get the job, and then you get where you want to go, and then you do on-the-job training to get really good and specialized where you're at. Because an emergency room nurse is different from a floor nurse, is different from an outpatient nurse. Same thing with physicians. They specialize in, you know, podiatry and cardiology and emergency medicine, you know. But going back to the question, paramedics, we graduate and we have to hit the ground running. That's the whole point, you know. And I remember being very young as a paramedic. Within, like I said, 6 months, we had I worked out in Riverside, and there was a big fire in the river bottom. There's like a river that kind of cuts through the middle of the river, dry river-ish. Big fire happens, you know, once, twice a year or more, and it took all the resources from Riverside City Fire, and there's 14 stations. So most of them are out there trying to suppress this thing because there's houses on either side of this thing. You know, county fires hitting it from the north, and I responded to a traffic collision, and I'm like 2 minutes from it. The nearest fire station would have been about 4, so I was going to beat them anyway, but all of the local stations were on call. We're dealing with the fire. And typically I don't need fire for a lot of things. Traffic collisions we do because they're going to help with, you know, keeping the scene safe by blocking the road, or if there's extrication that's needed and stuff like that. It's you know, helps a lot with the situation and stuff. But the medicine, I don't need. Me and my partner can handle most anything. We roll up, and it was a minivan that had just swerved off the road, maybe 50 miles an hour, about that speed on the road, hit a light pole, maybe, or a junction box, something on the side of the road. And it was like husband was driving, wife was in the passenger seat, and there was 3 kids in the back. One was in a car seat, one was in a booster, and one wasn't. So it was like a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and like a 6-year-old. The car from behind their middle row was just full of stuff. I mean, just stuff and things and whatnots. They hit so hard that the middle row seat, the back came unhinged. Ooh. So the kids were leaning forward in the seat, like pressed up against the parents. We couldn't get the door open to get to the dad and the wife. They didn't speak English. So it was me and my partner, and then some bystanders started rolling up. And it was, you know, what we define as a mass casualty incident is more patients than you can handle currently. We didn't activate it as an MCI, but my nearest engine was 10 minutes out, so I had to get on the radio. We walked up and made a quick assessment of what was going on and call for more ambulance resources because I had 5 patients I needed to manage, and I can take 2 to 3 in my ambulance at best, and I was preparing to do it. And what ended up happening is I had a bystander. They're not always helpful. A lot of them are just looking and trying to be involved, and it's not typically helpful. Sometimes there are, though. A guy came up with a high lift jack from his Jeep or whatever, and, you know, can this help? We couldn't get the door open. The dude said, yeah, jam that thing in that door and just start cranking, see if we can get that door open. And we were pulling kids out of the window. You know, the kid in the car seat, we kept in the car seat, we padded to support the neck, and we were pulling the kids out of the back window. We got the other kid out, and then the third kid came out on the other side, and I had a child laying on the bench seat of my ambulance with a femur fracture. I think it was a 6-year-old. The kid in the car seat was strapped to my stretcher, and then the 4-year-old was sitting in the jump seat behind the stretcher in the ambulance because it had a fold down car seat. Some of the ambulances do, and mine did. So I had her strapped up. She was okay, cuts and bruises, just checked out. The baby was padded pretty good. It was that 6-year-old with a femur fracture, not mid shaft, it was more proximal, but femur fracture, short and rotated. And I was prepared to roll to the children's hospital with 3 patients while I was also trying to get the mom and dad like squared away. I'm putting them in a collar through the window and stuff. And eventually I had enough resources show up right before I was out to take off that, you know, I could give 2 of the kids to other ambulances to give more. I took the kid with the femur fracture, but I took the 4-year-old and the 2-year-old that just needed more of an assessment. With other ambulances, we ran up to Children's Hospital and Loma Linda, and then the mom and dad went to the local trauma center because you got to go the closest, you know. But that was like,
how fresh on at that point?
like within 6 months as a paramedic, like early as a paramedic, and then just hitting that thing and just like, okay. And then it's one of those things where I've spent a lot of time training in that, taking that tactical pause of that. Like, I remember just feeling that like feeling of like your head underwater, like you're not even like keeping it above, just fully submerged as soon as I hit that scene because I had no resources. I couldn't get the dad out of the car. Yeah. You know, there's 5 patients, 3 of them are kids. The whole back seat was tilted forward, you know, with the amount of crap behind it. It was just a big like, oh, it's just me and my partner.
Yeah, you know, you're like, all right, who's in charge? I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Oh no,
I need an adultier adult. You know? And it was one of those situations where it was like immediately just like, of course, it was a perfect storm of like all the fire resources are on fires, you know, like there's no one nearby. The nearest ambulance is 10 minutes out. You know, I think I had a supervisor show up like 6-7 minutes in. I had him.
Which in a situation like that, that's an eternity. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Time dilation is great, you know, but it was, you know, I think I had the soup go and manage the adult patients because they were okay, but the kids were my focus, you know, not that they're more important because I had them in my ambulance and I was getting ready to step off. Then I got a little bit of a discussion with my supervisor whether or not I should leave with the kids or wait for more resources. I'm like, I can handle what I have. The fracture is what I'm worried about. These 2 just need assessing. I can assess them and manage this and scoot to Loma Linda. And it would have saved 10 minutes maybe, but we stayed and everyone got a patient. We scooted. But I remember immediately just feeling that like overwhelming, like, oh no, you know, but it's one of those, okay, task priority, take a breath. What are we doing? What's the priority? You know, like for me, I love having a pace plan for everything, you know, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, and just like, what is my focus? You know, it's one of those things like it helps my kids when they're cleaning their room and it's the whole like, don't look at the mountain because the mountain is insurmountable. You look at Everest and you're like, oh, that thing is a million miles high. I'm never going to be able to mount some, you know, if you take it one step at a time. Hey, I'm just going to get to this base camp. Oh, I just need to get to this today. You know, like with my kids cleaning their room. Hey, don't look at the mess.
Start with the clothes.
Start with thing. And their daily cleanup is, hey, put your shoes away. Yeah. When you're done with your shoes, let me know. Okay, pick up your dirty clothes and throw them in the hamper. Cool. Bedding on the bed, trash in the trash can. And we just do little pieces at a time before you know the room's clean.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing in a chaotic scene. Hey, well, it's, you know, there's a lot going on. What is my priority? You know, the vehicle's stable. It's not going to roll neat. You know, on the ambulance, we didn't carry anything that we could really do any kind of chalking, but I can hit the e-brake at least, you know, get that thing stabilized. Is how dangerous is my situation? Right. You know, like everything's acronyms. You know, you come from a military background, it's acronyms. You get into medicine, it's acronyms. And it's not that it makes things easier to memorize, but we have one, it's Penman, you know, and it's all about as you arrive onto a scene, like, are you safe? Is the environment safe? You know, like how many patients are there? And it does work. People just write it off. You know, it's fundamentals of shooting. Yeah. You know, when you realize that your instructor is probably right, and then you apply the fundamentals of shooting to everything you do, it's amazing when you're like, you know, actually putting rounds on target and hitting the A zones is more often, you know, and stuff. But You know, it just comes back to training, just feeling comfortable in what you're doing. You train, you don't train until you can do something right, right? You train until you can't do it wrong, right? And then it factors into how you're training. You know, if you're sitting there doing, you know, with your concealed holster and just doing it real sloppily, and you're just, you know, and you're just kind of running through. We did 30 minutes today, but it was real sloppy. There was no consistency. You weren't working on every individual movement. You know, it's one of those things where practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. How you practice will dictate how you perform. You know, like, yep. And it's practicing it the right way means more than practicing it a lot, right? Because time doesn't equate competency, right? Being able to do something and being able to do something competently are different. So like, I know paramedics have been paramedics for 20 years, but they never really got better after their second year. They just kind of stayed a second or third year paramedic for 20 years. They never sought improvement. They never stayed current on their medicine. Changes all the time. If you get into medicine, you have to stay current with everything. You can't be like, oh, this is what I learned 20 years. This is how I do it. You know, like you have to keep moving.
Two things, because I want to make sure we get to everything in time.
Sure.
One thing I thought was interesting would be maybe common things, if you want to just briefly touch on, that people carry that they shouldn't or don't carry that they should. And then I definitely want to, it's a question we ask everyone, and it's one of my favorites, is about, greatest threats facing the world in the U.S. today. But,
sure.
But yeah, if you want to start with
that. I think it all boils down to going back to like competency, right? If I gave you my range medical bag that has all of the cool things and advanced things and whatnots, it would be like 30 pounds of crap you don't need and maybe 10 pounds that you'd be like, I know what this is, right? Like it's competence, right? I can do a bunch of cool advanced stuff. Is there a time and place where I'm going to do that out in the wild? Probably not, right? If I don't have like an oxygen tank, I don't have a good egress plan, I don't have like the ability to call for a bird if we're out on a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day hike or something and like get someone there. Like I'm not going to start anything crazy. Plus it comes to legality where I'm operating outside of my scope of practice. I don't have a medical director protecting me. That's a question on all medical interviews is like, you work for company A and you can do all this cool stuff. Then you work for company B and you can't do half the cool stuff anymore, but you're caring for a patient that, you know, if you did something that you're trained to do, you used to do with company A, would you do it for that person that's what's going to save their life?
What's the correct answer?
Your correct answer is no. Because if I do the thing I know how to do and I save their life, I'm still open to going to jail. I'm going to get, my company is going to fire me and they could, you know, take me to court. If something happens weird, that family could take me to court because I'm operating outside of my established scope and practice and under the laws and stuff. Would I do it? But because I'm a medical professional, if working under the company, it's one of those things, what are you going to do? If we were backpacking in the middle of nowhere and there's something I could do to save your life, like I'm going to do it. I would just hope you wouldn't sue me on the back end. You know, like I have a weird scar now. Thanks, John. You know, like,
do you agree with that? I mean, I understand like from a purely like business insurance, whatever standpoint, why they would have that be the correct answer. But like, doesn't that go, I'm an idiot. Doesn't that go against the Hippocratic Oath?
Physicians take the Hippocratic Oath.
But no one else.
Paramedics is do no harm, take no shit is kind of our like duality of being a paramedic. We don't really.
So do you personally agree with that?
I don't agree with it, but I understand why it's there. Right. Because if I lose my license, even if the worst thing that happens to me is like they just strip me of my ability to be a paramedic, I have a lot of skills and knowledge and ability that I cannot go do anymore. I can't do the job. I might have saved a life. I might have injured. I might have saved someone that still ended up dying, but then the family's looking for the weak link in the chain to sue, and doctors are protected, and it's going to come after me. It's not fun going to court and writing depositions. We do it as paramedics all the time. You get on an accident and there's like, okay, well, legally there's nothing wrong, but party A is suing party B because there was a whatever, and then you're going to court being like, yeah, you know, when I arrived on scene, this was my, you know, they hand you your chart and you go, oh man, my spelling was bad. And then everyone sees it in front of, you don't want any of that, you know, like It's a legality thing. And it sucks. You want to operate within the best interests. Like it's the Good Samaritan laws. Every state has their own Good Samaritan laws that we follow under, but it's basically, it boils down to you are working in the patient's best interest to your skills and abilities. I'm a paramedic. I'm a flight paramedic. I'm critical care stuff. But if I just have what's in my pocket, I'm just like a spicy bystander. Could I do a lot of cool stuff? Yeah, but I don't have a cool bag or a monitor or a ventilator or all my medicine.
That's pretty MacGyverish. I'm sure you can.
Listen, I grew up watching MacGyver. He was my that mullet and that Jeep.
Oh, so
Richard Dean
good.
Anderson. My great grandma watched it, and I watched it with her
watched it
every
all
day.
the time. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
So we have like a lot of tactical guys out there in the gun world right now, and I make it a point to like kind of like throw some shade at them or why they carry certain medical supplies, and we have one right here on the table,
Sure,
and why not to carry it.
absolutely. So we have a great example. It's Cat Tourniquet. These things are homies. They've been proven time and time again overseas the last 20 years. They came out because dudes in the special, cool guy communities were, with a lot of cool medical training needed something, right? And they came back and they started cool companies like North American Rescue and whatever, and they have good solid products. They've been proven these things work. Good thing to carry. Little bulky, right? If you're going to buy a tourniquet, you're going to carry a tourniquet. You need to make sure it's one of the ones on the list of the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care. It's gone up from 7 to I think 9 now. I'm not sure. They keep adding more, but they go through rigorous testing to make sure it's worth. The SWAT T Wide is another good one. It's pretty robust. But if you can carry this, cool. This is pretty bulky for a back pocket.
I have my visor in my car.
Visor. If you go in my truck, I have
Carry softy.
Softy, great ones. They folded. They're a little flatter,
Yeah.
more metal components.
But less people know how to use those.
Yeah, and it goes back to training. I can put this one on in the dark in 10 seconds in chaos and have it be on correct because I've done this a million times. I can put those on because I've trained to them. One thing people should stop carrying is this. This is an ARS from North American Rescue. North American Rescue makes a lot of good stuff. But it's a needle decompression needle, right? So this is like, you always hear sucking chest when you get hit in the chest, bulk goes in the lung, and it creates an air bubble between the inside of your chest wall and the outside of your lung, and you get that big and it starts collapsing your lung, right? So oh no, what do you do about it? You poke a little hole and it bleeds the air out. You're not trying to get this into the lung. You're trying to get it into the pleural space between the lung and the inside of the chest wall, which normally it's nothing. You get a little, air leaking out of your lung or in from your chest. It creates a space, right? And it starts collapsing your lung. The lung starts getting pushed, and then in the middle of your chest, you have your heart. So as that bubble gets bigger, it starts squeezing your heart. Your heart can't beat efficiently, and you start becoming unstable, right? So shocking.
On the left.
The heart's kind of right in the middle. It kicks a little to the left, but it's
Okay.
middle of your chest, about the size of your fist.
I saw a thing totally off topic, a Mandela effect thing, which was like I always thought it was on the left. People say it's in the center.
Like right here.
It's like dead center. It kind of kicked the apex of the heart. The top of the heart's actually the bottom. It doesn't need to be. It could be the top, but some doctor 100 years ago was like, well, this is the top. It's just the bottom of the heart. But it kicks a little to the left. So it's a little more oriented kind of towards the left, but center your chest. But if that bubble starts pushing, it squeezes the heart. It can't fully expand and contract. And then blood pressure goes down. Your heart rate tries to go up to meet it. Then you get shock. So what we do is we take a little needle. We hit an appropriate landmark. We insert it just into the airspace, not into the lung. And then we bleed off that air, and its attention pneumothorax turns into remotely resolved until we get to the hospital and can do bigger things, right? So needle decompression needles are cool, and you always see this stuff like tactical candy. Like every time you see the cool guy stuff where it's all in their molly webbing and stuff like that, and you're like, hey, do you know how to use that? And they're like, well, no, but if I ever went down, if the medic responded to me, I have it for him to use. It's like, I don't know how long this has been in the sun in your gear. I don't know if you've opened it just to look at it and crack the seal so there it's not sterile, and I'm going to stab this into your chest wall, a bunch of other stuff. Generally, I like to put a little bit of iodine before I stab somebody into their chest because it's kind of nice to be a little more sterile. But I know paramedics that have been paramedics for a long time that have never done this, and it's no fault to them. Sometimes you just don't get the patients that need them. I've done this a bunch of times. I just
EMT's trained to do that?
no. This is
paramedics.
stabby. Yeah, paramedics and up. It's a cool skill to do. I've done it live. The first time you do it, you're like, oh. Then you do it. After you do it once, you're like, oh, it's pretty easy. I've been on scenes where I've done one and handed it to the other paramedic. Like, hey, have you done this? And they're like, no. I'm like, here, go for it. I've done some. You should do some too. Because you have what's called a traumatic full arrest, which is a heart attack induced by trauma, which is not great, low survivability. But we do automatically a bilateral needle T, which means we do one on each side. And so, I got one, you got one. Go for it, homie. But there's a lot of people
carrying those.
as paramedics that are terrible at these. I used to teach this every 2 weeks. And just the stuff that comes out of what do we watch them do it? And you're just like, come on, guys. we can do better. But people get complacency. Complacency kills. People only want to do the certifications they have to do. They just check the boxes. They get through. Someone pencil whips them on the course. You know, I took the time to teach when I taught that we're going to hands-on, we're going to refine this, we're going to make sure you can do it better every time, you know, you really understand what you're doing, because that's valuable, because you're not going to do this once or twice, more than once or twice a year, maybe, you know. So it's one of those things where it's like high risk, high reward kind of thing, but the frequency is so low. But I would, as a paramedic, if I showed up and someone handed me this, unless I had the time to really look at it, make sure it was sterile, make sure like it was not expired, plastics expire. And mostly it's that because they can't ensure the validity of it not being compromised with heat and time. You know, these things sitting in the sun, if I brought my combat lifesaver kit from my truck up here, I had 2 of these in there and they melted into my plastic because it got so hot in my truck in the summer and stuff. So like those got thrown away. But I mean, like, you can't have this stuff in the heat. You can't have this stuff sitting in the sun. They get all crinkly and crappy. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like, if you carry them, you need to be trained on them and competent on them. So just learning how to do it, like, I show you how to do this in 10 minutes. Yeah. But do you have competency? You know, if we did that and then we shot some guy on the street and I just handed it and said, go fix him, you would be like, I don't even remember what I'm supposed to do. Right. So
stab him in the neck with it.
Just end it as fast as you can.
I try to like I'm an idiot, but I try to preach like just keep the basic stuff that you can like learn. Just like TQs, chest seals, some band-aids, some, like what?
Wound packing, gauze.
Stuff, like.
And there's something to that too. I always used to make fun of the cool guy in Israeli dressing, like $15-$20. All the cool guy dressings, like they have all the stuff built in and they're rad, but they cost a lot of money. Two packs of roller gauze and some Tegaderm. Or sorry, not Coban. It's a non-adherent cohesive dressing, and it doesn't matter if it's wet; it'll stick to itself. Or Ace bandage, an Ace bandage and 2 packs of roller gauze. How much it cost? $2, $3. You know, like I've given you a bunch of stuff, and like I can hand you cool guy dressings, but you'll never use it because it costs $20. You'll never open it to train with it because it costs $20. And then once you do that, it's dedicated to training. Even hemostatic agents like Celox and QuikClot and all that stuff like that, those are cool, but they're not perfect, right? Like you can't just pack a wound with QuikClot and be like, oh, they're good. It's helpful for sure. If I have it, I'll use it. But the data suggests that if you just pack a wound properly, like it does almost as good, if not the same. So 2 things of roller gauze and an Ace bandage, $4, and you didn't have to spend all this money on cool guy prepackaged, Coyote tan tactical stuff. Like I have some of that stuff from back in the day and just stuff I picked up. But knowledge the more knowledge you have in something means like you have to carry less things, right? I know how to do my stuff. I don't have to carry a lot of stuff to be competent in survival. Like I have some stuff in my pile of EDC that is dedicated to survival. I can start a fire. I have a cutting tool. I have another cutting tool. I have a light source and stuff like that. Then I have some other stuff that's dedicated to like evasion things. Like I went to SEER school in the Marine Corps and had a blast with it. And I've been into lock picking and, counter custody things for a long time. And when I went up there, I was teaching, I could pick cuffs when I went there and I taught my whole group to pick cuffs, like I was teaching some of the restraints, mitigating things to my team and stuff. And like, I was having a great time with the instructors because I was learning some stuff, but I came with so much knowledge with there. So I had a great time. It was masochistic at SEER school, you get the hell beat out of you, but it was a fun time.
Every time someone talks about SEER training, my brain all of it goes to G.I. Jane and it's like my dick master cave. Like
I think we just have a few short minutes left.
Sure.
Real quick.
The biggest question we asked.
Yes. What is the greatest threat facing the United States today?
Politicians.
Nice.
I mean, you boil everything. Okay, well, there's 18 countries right now fighting each other and it's all boiling over and whatnot. And it always boils back down to politicians. You have career politicians that have been in office for 50 years who've never done anything but be politicians. They're so far removed from the people that they serve. They're not a representative of the people anymore. When you can get into office and make, $100 and something thousand a year, but your net worth is $102 million, all the, immediately, like it boils down to politicians. What Feinstein died and she left three $20 million homes and a $47 million jet to like, how do you get that in office? You know,
$74,000 salary.
Yeah.
exactly. It boils down to career politicians, and it's not going to fix everything. But if you term limits in Congress and stuff, you 2 6-year terms, that's fine. Then you get fresh people, young people, new people that are actually from the areas that they represent. When you have people that it's, you know, the Senate office and, you know, everything, it looks like an old folks home where they're wheeled in on wheelchairs and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, well, are you a representative? Have you walked and talked to the people? Are you of the people? You know, have you forgot that you serve at the pleasure of the people? You know, they're supposed to be representing us, right? We're a representative democracy, but none of them represent us anymore. That's the problem. And that's what was people making weird, you know, choices and stuff where you're like, oh, why are we involved in that? We don't need to be involved in that, you know, like in any regard. But, you know, it's politicians that kind of are going to ruin it for us because they've been in their office for a million years.
Awesome. Well,
It's getting spicy right now.
yeah.
November's going to be fun.
Yeah. Before the cameras cut off, just want to thank you for your time. And
Yeah.
that was great. Very informative. Anything you want to plug real quick? No.
Nope, I don't do anything. I have eventually I'll do some training and stuff. I have some things in the works on some of the socials. I just haven't started, you know, new job.
Man, we can
stuff.
put you under the company for training. Like,
Sure.
pretty rad.
Yeah.
Talk about
Do
that.
some fun stuff. Collaborate.
Could do some rad stuff because people are always like, there's no T-triple-Cs. There's nothing. There's like stop the bleeds and just shooting classes. And
There's a gap in between TCCC or TECC, which is good. TCCC is more oriented to like combat medic stuff. TECC is tactical emergency combat care, which is more oriented to like first responders, police, fire. Civilians would benefit that a little bit more because that's going to be more of a scenario you're going to be in. But either way, they're $500 classes and it's 2 days. There's
people will pay that because people want like some type of scenario that's going to put them under some kind of pressure. And
yeah, I mean, you can do that and you'll get a little card and stuff and it's like NAEMT certified and it's neat. You could also just do training and stuff without needing the card or the formality of it, of just like, you know, like what we did in the desert, just, you know, hang out and allegedly learn some. It takes 3 guys, allegedly.
but no, people want that. Everybody's starting to wake up and see like what's going on with the country, and nobody's coming to save them.
No. You got to be able to patch your buddies up, you know, at least you and your family and the homies.
100%.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, no worries.